Welcome to Supply Chain Moments. The Football World Cup in Qatar is the sporting event of the year 2022. For the first time in history, the World Cup will not take place during the summer, but in winter, in November and December. 32 teams play in 64 games for the title. In the Gulf state, which is only 11,600 square meters in size, which roughly corresponds to the area of Upper Austria, games are played in 8 different stadiums spread over 5 cities. To host the World Cup in Qatar, the country first had to create the basic infrastructure necessary for the event. The Gulf state has invested around $200 billion in stadiums, a new airport, new subway lines, a new port, new infrastructure projects, and over 100 new hotels. An enormous sum when you consider that the highest investment sum to date was $22 billion for the 2018 World Cup in Russia. In comparison, Germany invested only $450 million in 2006. This corresponds to 2% of the total investment cost for the 2022 World Cup. With most of the infrastructural requirements completed, the organizers, sponsors, and partners must now manage the import of their materials. All equipment, merchandising, and of course food for the fans must be brought to the destinations. All materials are brought into the country either by land, air, or sea. Different modes of transportation are selected based on the type of materials and other requirements such as cost and time. For example, just for the games, over 3,000 soccer balls are needed. And in 2018, the television stations alone needed 36 trucks just for camera equipment. Qatar has 3 main seaports handling 1.5 million 20-foot equivalent container units, or TEUs, in 2021. In comparison to Rotterdam, the largest port in Europe, it processed 15.3 million containers in 2021. But Qatar's port throughput continues to grow. The container throughput has more than doubled in the last 5 years, and following construction, the main port will be able to process 7.5 million containers per year. In terms of air transportation, the largest airport in Qatar is Hamad International Airport, which was crowned the best airport in the world for a second year in a row. It served 17.7 million passengers in 2021 and can handle up to 30 million passengers per year. In the future, the airport hopes to welcome 50 million passengers per year. By comparison, the largest airport in Europe, Istanbul Airport in Turkey, handled 37.2 million passengers in 2021. The small size of the country can be a facilitating factor in terms of logistics. The last mile, which is traditionally done by truck, is easier to handle thanks to short distances. In addition, the venues are only in 5 different cities. Of course, this also benefits the logistics of the teams. If you have to switch between venues, precise planning is much easier. The longest distance between 2 stadiums is 70 kilometers, which would result in a roughly 50-minute car ride. The shortest distance between 2 stadiums will be just 4.5 kilometers. In comparison, at the World Cup in 2014 in Brazil, the shortest distance was 340 kilometers and the longest was 3,140 kilometers between 2 stadiums. However, a particularly difficult task for Qatar is the accommodation of fans. Receiving, transporting, and hosting fans is a major challenge for the small country. 1.2 million fans from abroad are expected and only 100,000 hotel rooms are available. In addition, some of those hotels are not yet finished. Various options are being considered to compensate for this imbalance. It has been announced that tented camps for fans could be another option for accommodation. Another alternative could be billeting fans in foreign countries, but that would require 160 shuttle flights a day, and the promised high-speed trains between the Gulf nations is still unfinished. Shuttle buses from other countries are also not very realistic, since the larger cities in neighboring countries are just simply too far away to go by car or bus to Qatar. From a sustainability standpoint of view, hundreds of extra shuttle flights are a very dubious idea, especially since the organizers and host country continue to describe the World Cup as climate neutral. And this is by no means the only critique of this year's World Cup. In particular, the primary critique is of the working conditions during the construction of the stadiums, wherein thousands of guest workers were exploited. Amnesty International reported 15,000 dead guest workers between 2010 and 2019. Despite a drastic improvement in working conditions in recent years, criticism of the host country Qatar and the organizer FIFA remains very loud. The FIFA president responsible at the time, Joseph Blatter, now describes the World Cup in Qatar as a big mistake. He accuses the then UEFA president Michel Platini and the then French president Nicolas Sarkozy of having decisively intervened in the awarding of the World Cup. In conclusion, the largest logistical challenges for this year's World Cup will be the accommodation and the transportation of the fans. While most of the required infrastructure is finished, it is unlikely that a small country like Qatar could suddenly build millions of hotel rooms. If the organizers decide to host thousands of fans in tents and containers, which all have to be cooled in the desert, or to transport fans using hundreds of shuttle flights, the solution or solutions will most likely not be climate friendly. For the teams and the lucky fans with a hotel room, the World Cup will have far less logistical challenges than previous years. But how exactly Qatar plans to overcome its very real logistical challenges concerning visitors remains to be seen. Thank you for watching, subscribe below, and turn on notifications. We'll see you in our next video.